So today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. My top 5 greatest driver lineups in the history of Formula 1. Now, one of my favorite types of videos to watch on YouTube is list videos, ranking stuff, top 10s, top 5s, best to worst, stuff like that. And it's something I want to bring back to my channel, especially with the build up to the 2021 season. So yeah, today we're going to be doing the top 5 greatest driver lineups in the history of Formula 1, according to me. Now, of course, guys, let me know your top 5 in the comments box below. And in terms of this video, I'm not necessarily going with arguably the strongest, if that's depending on your interpretation of that word, or the most successful, because then we'd be talking about lineups like Hamilton, Bottas, Vettel, Webber, Schumacher, Barrichello, lineups that had a long period of success that kind of stood the test of time. But this list is really not about that. It's more about just 2 unbelievable individuals of such a high caliber being at the same team at the same time to make a driver lineup, battling against the rest of the grid, but more so each other. So that is what this list is all about. And also, just to add a little bit more spice into the video, I'm also going to be giving each lineup out of 5 a score in terms of talent and chemistry. So yeah, that should get a little bit interesting as well. Anyway, once again, guys, let me know your top 5 in the comments box below, and I hope you do enjoy this video. And if you do, then don't forget to drop a like, smash that subscribe button. Of course, we are on the road to 100k, but yeah, let's get into this one. Now, in 5th place, we're going straight away with the spicy one. We are going with Nigel Mansell and Nelson Piquet at Williams. Now, on the screen, I'll also have a few stats, and for the most part, they're pretty self-explanatory. Drivers' titles, constructors' titles, and then wins, poles, and podiums. And of course, this is combined for both of the drivers. And the only thing I do want to explain is that where it says wins, poles, and podiums, and there is a percentage next to the amount, that's how many they got out of the total that they could have got combined as teammates. So hopefully that makes sense. And again, all of the stats will be on the screen for you guys to see, but yeah, I might refer to them a little bit throughout the video. But yeah, let's get into it. So Mansell and Piquet at number 5. Now, in terms of talent, I've given this a 4 out of 5, 2 amazing drivers. However, in terms of chemistry, and many people will know that these two are bitter rivals, so I've given it an absolute 1, the lowest score. I don't think anyone could argue with that. These two drivers absolutely hated each other. But yeah, let's kind of talk about that a little bit later. First of all, in terms of talent, these two guys, the reason why they had to be on the list is because not only were they at the absolute peak of their careers, both phenomenal drivers. Nelson Piquet at the time going into Williams was already a 2-time world champion, and Nigel Mansell was easily a world championship quality driver. So what an amazing lineup. And of course, as the stats suggest, they won 1 driver's title, with Nelson Piquet adding to his 2 to become a 3-time world champion. I think a lot of people forget that Nelson Piquet is a 3-time world champion. I feel like that kind of goes unsaid quite a bit, but yeah, as drivers, they were amazing, great driver lineup, and I think they took Williams to that next level. They went from a good team that won championships in the past to one of the best teams in Formula 1, up there with McLaren, up there with Ferrari, a true top team that everyone respected, and of course that led to their incredible success in the 90s. So it was this era with Piquet and Mansell that really kind of took Williams to that next level. However, there was definitely some chemistry issues. They absolutely hated each other. We think of rivalries nowadays. Nelson Piquet and Nigel Mansell were on a completely different level, and part of the reason, or mostly it was down to the fact that Piquet came into the team as a 2-time world champion wanting to be the number 1. He thought Nigel Mansell was going to be the supporting act, and boy was he wrong, and it kind of spiraled from there. And even once Nelson Piquet left the team and went to Lotus, apparently at some point he said to the media he called Nigel Mansell an uneducated blockhead. So yeah, so clearly these two guys did not like each other. Nelson Piquet didn't realize how good Nigel Mansell was going to be. He did get the title in the end, but considering how good their car was and how good that driver lineup was, they should have won the title both years, and they didn't. They certainly let the title from 1986 slip away and go to Alain Prost, but nevertheless, it was amazing to see 2 absolutely incredible drivers, some of the best of their era, at the same team at the same time. So yeah, in 5th place, I've got Nigel Mansell and Nelson Piquet at Williams. So next up, and in 4th place, I have got Niki Lauda and Alain Prost at McLaren from 1984 to 1985. So again, only 2 years together, and actually that's going to be a bit of a recurring theme in this video. These greatest driver lineups don't tend to be together for very long, and there's a very good reason for that, as I'm sure you guys can guess. Now, in terms of this driver lineup, I've given them a 4 out of 5 in terms of talent and a 4 out of 5 in terms of chemistry. These two guys were very respectful with each other. The really interesting thing about this driver lineup is that these two drivers were at completely different points in their career. Niki Lauda was right at the end of his career and still winning, and in fact did win a world championship, as I said, which was absolutely amazing. And some of the best images of this era, where you can see Niki Lauda on the podium with Alain Prost, and you can see obviously his ear and, you know, what happened to his face after his famous 76 accident, and to see him winning races and winning championships despite his injuries was just absolutely unbelievable. The greatest sporting comeback of all time in my opinion. And then of course we had a young Prost as well, right in his prime, just coming into his championship winning years, and what an unbelievable lineup this was. So much respect between the two, and such very, almost I would say, very similar characters, very straightforward, straight to the point, saying what they mean, but very clever. We know Niki Lauda was extremely clever, great at car setup, and he really brought Ferrari back in the 70s, and Alain Prost was a very similar as well. He was called the Professor, of course. So two very smart drivers and so much similarity, and I feel like Alain Prost, in a way, I don't think he would have became the driver he actually was if it had not been for the knowledge that I'm sure Niki Lauda bestowed upon him. So such a mutually beneficial rivalry, such a beneficial driver lineup. I think maybe almost forgotten sometimes. We don't really talk about this driver lineup, but undoubtedly, in my opinion, one of the greatest driver lineups of all time. A really kind of master and apprentice kind of lineup, with Niki Lauda being the older guy, still quick enough to win championships, and then the younger Alain Prost winning championships, now coming into his era of dominance, which of course he went on to win 4 world titles compared to Niki's 3. So again, it's a real master and apprentice kind of lineup that I see it anyway, and it had to be on this list. Some of the best drivers, not just of their generation, but of all time. So yeah, in 4th place, I have got Niki Lauda and Alain Prost at McLaren. Now, in 3rd place, I have got a very, very, very special driver lineup. I didn't even realize that these two absolute legends of the sport even were at the same team at the same time. It was a very short-lived combination, but in 3rd place, I have got Juan Manuel Fangio and Sir Stirling Moss. I mean, wow, what an unbelievable driver partnership. Again, I didn't even realize that they raced at the same team, but yes, for one season only in 1955 at the Mercedes team, they were part of that team. And the funny thing is, back in the 50s, that it was so strange because they weren't actually the only drivers for Mercedes. I think there were 4 other drivers, so in total 6 drivers for Mercedes throughout the entire year. So yeah, it was kind of crazy in the 50s. Now, in terms of the stats really quickly, in terms of talent, I've given them a 4 out of 5, but in terms of chemistry, I've given them a 5 out of 5 because there was so much respect and so much admiration, especially from Sir Stirling Moss, who was of course a young guy back in the day, looking at Fangio winning races and championships well into his 40s, I think. Even in their later years, Moss was always talking with so much admiration for Fangio and everything that he achieved. Yeah, what an unbelievable driver lineup. I don't know too much about it. Obviously, I wasn't really there to watch it, but the amazing thing for me is that when I kind of found out that these two drivers raced at the same team, the thing that really stood out to me is that at the same team you have the greatest driver of his generation, 5-time champion Juan Manuel Fangio, and in my opinion, the greatest driver to never win a world championship in Sir Stirling Moss. You have those two drivers at the same team at the same time. This lineup had to make the list. Now, in terms of what they achieved together, it was a massively successful season, unsurprisingly, with 2 amazing drivers at the team. And of course, Mercedes ended up winning the driver's title. There was no constructor's title back then, and it was Fangio to take the driver's title, and Sir Stirling Moss finishing in 2nd. And Stirling Moss actually finished 2nd in the title 4 times in his career, and it's just such a shame that he never managed to kind of just grab one of those titles, because it seems so wrong to not see Stirling Moss, or to see him not have a Formula 1 World Championship to his name. 2 unbelievable drivers, greats of their era, and it's just amazing to see them at the same team at the same time, even if it was for that just 1 year in 1955. So yeah, in 3rd place, I have got Juan Manuel Fangio and Sir Stirling Moss at Mercedes. So we are into the top 2, and in 2nd place, and I have no doubt that this is going to be a very, very polarizing pick, but in 2nd place, I have gone with Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso at McLaren for 2007. Now, in terms of their talent rating, I've given them a 5 out of 5, and in terms of their chemistry, I've given them a 3 out of 5. Now, undoubtedly, this will be a very polarizing pick, and it is a bit of an anomaly, especially when you compare it to the rest of the list, because they didn't win the driver's title that year, and they didn't even win the constructor's title, and in fact, it was such an amazing year for for McLaren in all of the wrong ways in terms of having two unbelievable drivers. The rise of Lewis Hamilton, the way he just slotted into Formula One even as a rookie and was straight away on the level of Fernando Alonso, prime Fernando, prime Kimi Raikkonen, prime Felipe Massa. Lewis did not look out of place at all, and that is why I've given this lineup a 5 out of 5 in terms of talent. However, it was, and again, an amazing season for McLaren in all of the worst ways because of stuff like Spygate, because of all of that inter-team rivalry between Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton, and of course it was because of stuff like Spygate why they got disqualified from the Constructors' World title. So that is why, taking everything into account, all of the behind-the-scenes drama, the butting of heads between a rookie Lewis Hamilton and an experienced Fernando Alonso, who of course left the team at the end of the year, Spygate with all of that, and at the same time, these two were winning races. They were absolutely killing it out there, and both in the end very famously lost out on the title. McLaren should have won that title with either of their two drivers, and arguably not giving number one status to either Fernando or Lewis actually cost them in the end, because both of them lost out on the title by 1 point each. So yeah, there is so many legendary aspects of that 2007 season, and although they weren't at their emotional primes in terms of, you know, Lewis has become a lot more mature since then, Fernando also has become a lot more mature since 2007, it was such a strange and almost chaotic and toxic and just polarizing season. But as drivers, the fact that Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton were at the same team at the same time, even for that one season, it had to be, they had to be on the list, because Fernando is top 10 all time, Lewis is arguably the greatest driver of all time. So yes, that driver lineup, despite all of its flaws and the fact that it could also be considered the worst ever, that there's definitely an argument for that, but nevertheless, in terms of talent, these two had to be on the list. So in second place, I have got Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso at McLaren for 2007. So we are now down to the number one spot, and I'm sure it's going to come as no surprise. And to be honest, it isn't even close to second or third. No one comes even close to this driver lineup, because at number one, we have Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost at McLaren from 1988 to 1989. Now, in terms of talent, come on, it was going to be a 5 out of 5, of course. However, in terms of chemistry, and this is one of the things that made that lineup so legendary, I've given them a 1 out of 5, unsurprisingly. Now, I did say that I'm not going to talk too much about the stats, but for this driver lineup, for their 2 years together, I mean, you just have to look at it to believe it for yourself. Of course, 2 drivers' titles, 1 for Prost, 1 for Senna, 2 back-to-back constructors' titles for McLaren. In terms of wins, they managed to get 25 wins as teammates. That is 78% of all of the potential wins that they could have got. But this is the crazy one. They also managed to get 30 pole positions, which, by the way, is 94% of all of the poles that they could have got over those 2 years. But just take a look at this. Out of those 30 poles, Ayrton Senna got 26 of those, with Alain Prost only getting 4. I mean, yeah, that is just absolutely nuts. That is why Ayrton Senna, in my opinion, is probably still the greatest qualifier of all time, even if Lewis Hamilton does have more poles. 26-4 in the favor of Ayrton Senna. And Alain Prost wasn't exactly slow in qualifying, but Ayrton Senna was just another level. Now, what more can I say about the Senna-Prost rivalry that hasn't already been said? I feel like more famous than anything else. You know, they're great drivers, of course, both of them, in my opinion, easily top 5 all time, and that is why they are number one. 2 drivers of that caliber at the same team, it's just unthinkable. It's almost ridiculous to have these 2 guys. It's almost unfair to the rest of the grid to have drivers of their quality at the same team. And then, of course, with the cars that they were driving, it was game over for everyone else. But it's less the driving and the achievements, but more the rivalry, the bitter hatred that both of them had for each other. And I talked about Piquet and Mansell, and they were saying stuff, you know, there was a lot of things going on behind the scenes at Williams, and Piquet thought that he was the number one driver, and there was a lot of beef there. However, with Senna and Prost, they didn't just say things about each other, they literally crashed each other off the circuit just to make sure the other one did not win. Of course, Prost crashed into Ayrton in 1989 in Japan, and then a year later, Ayrton Senna wiped out Prost when he went to Ferrari. So that's how bitter their rivalry was, and I feel like their toxicity and their rivalry and their hatred for each other was almost equally matched by how great of a driver they both were. And what's crazy is that even when Alain Prost left McLaren and then started winning races and of course won a title at Williams, Williams tried to maneuver Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost, once again becoming teammates at Williams for 1994, and Alain Prost just said no. He said, I'd rather retire, and he actually left the sport early after winning his title in 93 to let Ayrton Senna come into the team so that they would not be teammates together. And then of course we all know what happened in 1994 with Ayrton Senna going to Williams and that very tragic crash. So it's almost kind of crazy to think how their destinies were always so intertwined together, and even right up until the end. So yeah, in my opinion, undoubtedly the greatest driver lineup in the history of Formula One, Alain Prost and Ayrton Senna at McLaren. That is my number one. That is the greatest driver lineup ever in Formula One. Well guys, there you go. That is my top 5 greatest driver lineups in the history of Formula One. Now, of course, let me know your top 5 in the comments box below. I can't wait to see what you guys think. Undoubtedly, there's going to be some amazing driver lineups that maybe I forgot or maybe I don't rate as highly as you do, but that's okay because we all have kind of different opinions and we all rate different driver lineups differently. So yeah, again, I really look forward to seeing what you guys think in the comments box below. But again, I hope you did enjoy this video, and if you did, then don't forget to drop a like, smash that subscribe button, and don't forget to check out my social medias. Instagram and Twitter will be above. And guys, I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.